Welcome back to another episode of Spirit of an Athlete. I'm your host, Amanda Smith, creator of the Gutsy Chick Quiz. This short, fun quiz was designed for female athletes experiencing a health issue that they have not solved yet. Check it out at gutsychickquiz.com. On this episode of Spirit of an Athlete, I invited Dr. Jamie Krzykowski, who is an athletic trainer, a nutritionist, and a mental wellness coach. She's also a professor. She lets us in on what's the biggest knob to turn as an athlete to take care of yourself. Is it nutrition? Is it health? Is it injury prevention? Find out on this episode. And stick around till the end because she is sharing one of the coolest things that any of my guests have ever shared for free. And those of you who don't like to answer the question, what in the world am I supposed to cook tonight? Well, she's got it for you. Check that out at the end of the show, as well as in the show notes. Dr. Jamie Krzykowski, thank you so much for being on Spirit of an Athlete with me and sharing your knowledge around really all the things that you know, because when you look at all of the letters after your name, doctor, it just keeps going. So the first question I have for you is, what are all those letters?
Yes. Well, first it's my PhD, so PhD in holistic nutrition, and then it's LAT and ATC. And so LAT is a licensed athletic trainer. ATC is a certified athletic trainer. So technically you have to be certified in order to be licensed. But athletic trainers are the ones that run out onto the field when people get injured, and we manage injuries from the time they happen all the way through the rehabilitative process. And then I think my next one is CISSN, and that is Certified Sports Nutritionist. And I did that through the International Society of Sports Nutrition. And then I am also a therapeutic nutrition counselor. So that is another sort of holistic health coaching certification. And then also the CMWC is Certified Mental Wellness Coach, which really centers around lifestyle, holistic sort of well-being and especially nutrition.
Okay, so we've got Doctor of Athletic Training and let's see, CISSN was nutrition.
Sports nutrition.
And
Mhm.
then TNC was also nutrition based. And then CMWC is the mental wellness. So
Mhm.
you're really a holistic doctor. And
Yeah.
I am so here for this because athletes need to understand what knob to turn in order to really make the biggest impact in their well-being. And I feel like you're very qualified to answer that question. So what's the big knob that athletes should be turning in order to take care of themselves as athletes?
Right. And when I think of it too, I'm a mom of 3 and they're athletes. And so being an athletic trainer, a sports nutritionist, as well as a mom, I've seen it from all different directions. Right. And so thinking about turning the biggest knob, honestly, it's not as difficult as people might think. It's really about eating the right foods. And we all know we need to eat more fruits and vegetables. We need to eat lean proteins and healthy fats. And we just don't always want to do that, right? Because
Yeah.
the other foods taste good and we want that. But eating better and then timing. Timing is really important. Now, there's some very specific ways that you can do nutrient timing, and that's, I would say I've used it more with elite athletes that I've worked with, like triathletes, because they're training for 3 or 4 hours a day and it's pretty intense training. But you can back that up a little bit and still make it nutrient timing just a little less intensive so that it's something that's more manageable for the average person where your sport is not your job.
Oh, okay, let's unpack this because you just dropped some bombs on us. Okay, first off, nutrition is the thing that all athletes should be focused on. In your humble opinion, it's not mental health. It's not worrying about getting injured or injury prevention or the workouts that our bodies have to go through in order to prevent injury. It's nutrition.
Well, and here's part of it. Mental health is really important and prevention of injuries is important, but nutrition helps both of those things. And that's so important, right? Because Because it's not that mental health doesn't matter because, I mean, my husband is one of his master's degrees is sports psychology. And so he has, he was a coach for a long time and the sports psychology piece. And so we kind of have all the aspects of sports covered. But really, we need the mental health. We need to have the prevention of injuries, and nutrition helps us with everything, with performance and recovery, our energy, delaying fatigue, prevention of injury, because now we have provided the nutrients to the body where it can function optimally. And then when maybe there is something that we come close to, some sort of injury like tendonitis or something like that, that the body's naturally warding that off. Now, it doesn't mean
Mm.
that you're never going to get tendonitis, which is more of a chronic condition, but it's something that where we can use that to help in the recovery process. So yes, nutrition is of utmost importance. And sometimes I would say I see it a lot in our college athletes, especially when they think I'm a poor college student. I have to eat mac and cheese and ramen because, and cheese sandwiches because this is just, it's cheap and easy for me to get compared to maybe is Division 1 athletes that have scholarships and they have food that's all provided for them, or professional athletes that have, more resources, things like that. So it definitely varies with our different athletes as far as some of their access and to food and to the good food and everything and being able to afford it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I so Division 1 athlete and then Division 2 athlete. That was me. And it cracks me up because you were like, Division 1 athletes have better access to better food and they get no, we don't.
The
Not
big
all
ones,
Division
the
1
big
schools.
schools do. The big schools do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The big schools definitely, sit their kids down and go, "Okay, this is what you're eating." And they have nutrition classes, which I'm like, "Yes, that should be something that especially if you're a college athlete, that should be across the board. All
Right.
schools should have someone teaching their athletes how to eat properly, so all of these things are secondary. The
Mhm.
injuries, the concussions, all of that should be secondary, and we should be treating it with nutrition first as preventative and not having to respond later. But you said we can respond after the fact if we do get injured, and this is the
Mhm.
rabbit hole I want to go down.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. So, what what in the world do we eat after, say, a bone bruise? That one seems like a really deep, this one's gonna leave a mark kind of bruise. What in the world do we do for something like that?
Right. And so, a few things that when it comes to bone injuries, I mean, we want to prevent deterioration of bone, right? And so it's a two-sided coin. And part of that is we want to avoid things like acidic foods. So sugar, coffee, grains tend to be something that would be a little more acidic, and that will break down the bone. Now, with any sort of tissue, you're always going to have a little bit of breakdown and buildup, right? We
Mhm.
call that catabolism and anabolism, and that's just, those are the technical terms. So a little bit of that is natural, but we don't want a lot of that. So acidic foods, we want to avoid those. All right. So I said sugar, coffee, grains. Um, but we want to increase more of our alkaline foods. And so alkaline foods like celery and cucumbers are very alkaline. You can actually drink alkaline water. And, so thinking about foods that are whole foods, that are providing nutrients can make a really big difference. Now, increasing your intake of fruits and vegetables just in general can be really beneficial because now we're also getting other nutrients that the body needs, and especially the bones. Another thing is protein. Protein has a really important role in bone strength. And so nice, healthy, lean proteins are really important, trying to avoid some of those processed meats and, pepperoni and, sausages or whatever, some of those sorts of things that we want to try and avoid. But also getting enough calories.
Mm,
So, depending on the extent, like a bone bruise, you're probably staying in activity, which, I mean, depending on the extent of it and
mhm,
where it's located, because sometimes where it's located, if it's like your tibial plateau, which is the top of the tibia, and every time you step, you're getting pain because of a bone bruise, then you'll probably be out for a period of time. But if
mhm.
it's a bone bruise on, let's say, a soccer player on their medial tibia, the medial shin, then they are probably still playing. We might put a donut pad on that and then have them play. So another thing could be with some supplementation of like multivitamin, multi-mineral that could be beneficial. And really, we want whole food, multivitamin, multi-mineral. So then it's providing a whole variety of nutrients for you.
Okay. Grains are acidic. That one's interesting to me because I'm like, well, as athletes, carb loading could be part of what we need to do in order to do our sport. So
Right.
don't eat those. Lime. Immediately, my brain was like, ooh, I put lime in my water in the morning
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. That makes it alkaline. Would that be beneficial to
Mm-hmm.
an athlete?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Lime in your
Yes.
water. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Lemon is pH neutral. Lime makes it alkaline.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And
And
then,
Oh, I was gonna say, something that I should have mentioned too is something like bone broth can be
mm,
really beneficial, and that's beneficial for your gut, for the bones, for so many things, as well as collagen protein. Those can be helpful too.
well, if you have a bone bruise, have bone broth.
Mhm.
That's the easiest way to remember.
Yeah, yeah,
And, I feel like bone broth is so much more there's so much more knowledge and there's so much more access to getting bone broth now.
right.
You can pretty much find it anywhere. You can find it where you find your regular broths now, which I'm like, "That didn't happen probably 5 years ago."
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, bone bruise, bone broth. All right, let's do another scenario. Let's do, you tore let's see. I'm gonna get very specific because I loved how you went into like, I immediately was thinking about soccer players and shin and the bone
mm.
bruise because that's so common for them. Uh, let's do a muscle tear
'Kay,
in the hamstring. That one usually knocks you out. That one usually puts you on your butt. You're
right.
not going to be playing. And that's a fairly large muscle. So we tore our hamstring. How can we use nutrition to heal it?
Yes, and as someone who has torn their hamstring and injured my sciatic nerve at the same time,
Oh,
I know what a pain in the rear end this can be
literally.
because literally, literally. And it can take a while to recover from for sure. And again, so we think about what's the muscle made up of. And so one of the largest components of muscle is actually the amino acid leucine. Now,
Mm,
leucine is one of the branched chain amino acids,
mhm.
and the branched chain amino acids are leucine, isoleucine, and valine. People may or may not care about that, but
Might
leucine being the largest component of our muscle, then making sure that we would get like a branched chain amino acid supplement could be really beneficial in that healing process. Now, sometimes they'll just say increase protein in general, which will help. But if we specifically add in BCAAs, the branched chain amino acids, then there's going to be that extra benefit. So get your protein with your lean meats and your nuts and seeds and things, but then adding in something like that in a given day can be beneficial. Now,
Mm,
fats, getting healthy fats like omega-3 fatty acids, that can help with the inflammatory process. And so, helping to respond that way. Now, the inflammatory process is important. It's
mhm.
something that needs to happen. It's a natural thing for our body to respond by, creating histamine and whatever, and being able to go, oh, send the army. We have injured the hamstring, right?
Yes.
And it's when it lingers that it becomes bad. So we don't want to try and avoid the inflammatory process when we first have an injury. We want to assist it in functioning properly. And so healthy fats are always going to be good. Now, here's the thing. If we have healthy fats already available to us, then that makes a really big difference with how our body will respond. That's why consistent nutrition is so
Mm.
important.
Okay. All right. There's a lot to unpack here,
Yes, and there's more ideas too, so.
right? Okay. So Dr. Gundry, I don't know
Mhm,
if you know
mhm.
who he
Yep.
is. He's, some of his stuff I'm like, "Yes," and some of his stuff I'm like, "Mm." One of the things he talks about is leucine, and I I
Mhm.
I believe in this too because from an Ayurvedic perspective, I learned that trying to eat the outside of almonds and walnuts and pecans can be really difficult for some people's digestive tract, and
Mhm.
that's where the leucine is coming in from nuts. So, if you have a sensitive gut, going for a BCAA supplement, the powder supplements in particular, is that the
Mhm.
way to go?
Mhm.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. So then that gives me a secondary question, and this is more about preventative instead of injury. BCAAs after a hard lifting session. Is that like one of those timing things? We should be doing that because the science is fuzzy on this one, and there's a lot of bro science out there around BCAAs. But I'm hearing from you, this is important. We have to have this in our nutrition. If I'm drinking a BCAA after a heavy lifting session, and I know, like, football players go through lots of heavy lifting sessions
Mhm.
in there as a way of building up for their season. BCAAs after for preventative reasons, is that right?
So, couple of thoughts. One, I don't think you have to have a BCAA supplement. I think it just could be something that could be beneficial. Two, I would say take the BCAA supplement an hour or so before a heavy lifting session,
Ooh.
because then you from a timing standpoint, your body has already processed it, and it's ready to be utilized as soon as the session is done. So, oftentimes people are trying to take whey and BCAAs and other things afterwards, but take it before. And an hour or so before, depending on the length of your activity, because then it's ready to be used. It's right there. And now you've done this session, and now your body's like, all right, I'm going to gobble this up. I'm going to use this right away. So don't wait. Do it before.
Noted. Okay, and then you mentioned fats and right after injury, if it's bioavailable, if it's already in your system, then your body's going to recover faster from inflammation.
Mhm.
Love that piece. We're not gonna go, "Okay, athlete, you just injured yourself. Here's an avocado."
Right. Right.
Okay,
Well,
good.
you can. I mean, it's just gonna
Fine.
take a little while for it to be
Just that
utilized.
okay, okay, noted. And you're not gonna rub an avocado on the injury. I
Well,
thought
I mean, it's probably not gonna hurt it, but it's not gonna help it either.
okay, alright. Just throwing those kinds of things out there. I am a huge, huge fan of coconut oil, and
Mhm.
this is like, I just read a meme the other day about if your friend is telling you to put coconut oil on everything, she's definitely a hippie. I use coconut oil like the grandpa from or the dad from My Big Fat Greek Wedding uses Windex.
Oh.
That's my jam. So,
Mhm.
would it be beneficial for an athlete to just basically take some coconut oil and eat it, gobble it up to help with that inflammation process that's going on?
So, yes, I mean, coconut oil can be beneficial. One thing I would say, there's the full fat coconut oil that's going to be solid at room temperature.
Mhm.
I would say more of the MCT oil, which would be the medium chain triglyceride. So that's oil that would be the liquid coconut oil that um, it's less expensive if you go to the baking aisle than it is if you buy it in supplement form, just so you know.
Wink,
And
wink.
I know, wink, wink, right? And hopefully no manufacturers hear that because they're going to increase the price on that. But the liquid coconut oil would be more beneficial. And then I would say extra virgin olive oil that's cold pressed would also be another one. And you always want to make sure your oil is cold pressed because then it's not going to lose its beneficial properties in like a heating sort of process.
Yep, refining definitely makes a
Mhm.
change in those chemical
Yes.
properties. Okay, good. I love that. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next injury,
Okay.
concussions. How in the world can nutrition help a concussion, and why isn't that something as part of the protocol that people have to follow after a concussion?
I have often asked myself that same question, and where where I, people's athletes and that I work with, I provide handouts for them to say, here are some tips for some of this recovery process. And I don't know. I actually spoke at a state athletic training meeting a couple years ago about nutrition for concussions, and people were just amazed. They're like, "I had no idea about this." And this was to a group of athletic trainers, and it saddened me a little bit because I
Right.
was just like, "Oh, this is such an important part of recovery." And so I think it's just been something that we think about the how bad are your headaches and staying away from technology and some of the other things that that we need for recovery. But when we add in the nutrition side, because it's not like you're not doing rehabilitative exercise in the same way that you would for a hamstring strain that you're rehabilitating or something. There are definitely some things that you can do reaction time wise for rehab, but nutrition is so important. And one of the big things is again protein. And if you've heard anything, it's like, oh, I probably need to think about the protein that I'm eating and how much I'm eating, because one of the main things when it comes to concussions is that protein supports the production. Get ready for this, for BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Okay. And
Mm.
that's BDNF. And that's something that helps the brain to heal. And basically, what it's doing is it's promoting the survival of our nerve cells and plays a role in growth and maturation and survival, and maintenance of the cells. And so a concussion is specifically a brain injury. And so when we have, and concussions can also decrease our appetite. So sometimes someone with a concussion, just like, oh, I just want to sleep and I don't want the lights up very much. And I don't feel like eating. We need to force ourselves to eat when we have a concussion. Or if someone has a concussion, try to force them to eat something, because then we miss out on the opportunity for healing. So protein for the BDNF production. We also, vitamin D is another really important thing. And that I would say, because it's harder to get vitamin D in foods, I would get it in supplement form, a D3, at least, probably a couple thousand international units of that in a day. But again, it helps to protect nerves and helps to prevent what's called post-concussion syndrome. And so some of the research is showing that. And then staying hydrated. Our brains are mostly water. So staying well hydrated is very helpful as well in the recovery. And that's just a few of the things.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You've got me thinking about, all right, if I'm not eating enough protein on a daily basis and I feel like my brain is a little sluggish, just go eat protein.
Hmm.
And that's a life hack. That's not just a concussion hack.
Right, right. Yes.
Okay. All right. Uh Specific proteins, does it need to be red meat? Does it need to be legumes? What kind of proteins do we need in that instance? Or does it even matter?
So, I mean, it depends. Like for me with red meat, I would say it needs to be hormone free, antibiotic free, free range. So if someone in your family hunts, see if you can get some venison or something, right? That's probably the ultimate. But you would want it to be that, because otherwise there can be saturated fats that aren't going to be good for the body in some of the red meats. So just thinking of that, red meat, if it's raised appropriately, can be very good for us, but it's more about the hormones and other things that can be bad. But we really want all of the essential amino acids. And so you can eat legumes, but then you need to have rice or something like that with it to make it a complete protein. Otherwise, you'll be missing out on some of the key components or the essential amino acids that can't be produced in our bodies. So proteins are made of amino acids. Some of them we can produce in the body, some of them we can't. So the essential ones are ones we need to get in our diets. And so um, meats can be fine. Fish, not farm raised fish though, fresh caught fish. Yes, we really have to stay away from those farm raised fish. There's some documentaries out there that would scare people a little bit, but
Yes. And
about that.
the heavy metals increase in those fish because they're
Mhm.
in a concentrated small space. It's like knowledge about, free range chickens versus cage free chickens versus the other kind that don't
Mhm.
move and are hormone pumped and all that jazz. Yeah, the documentaries will definitely open your eyes, people.
Oh, yes. Yes, and I would encourage people to watch them because it is scary, and as someone who grew up on the West Coast where we got nice,
Yeah.
fresh fish and everything that, was not farm raised, then now I live in the Midwest, and there's a lot of the farm raised stuff here, and I just like, ugh, it doesn't taste as good either, so
No, it doesn't have it. It's like eating I grow raspberries in my yard and cherries in my yard, and eating those, it's so different than even the grocery store organic
Mhm.
version, and then compare that to the kind that's not organic. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Same thing with the fish. It's the exact
Yes.
same, and it's the exact same with almost all meats, really, in my humble opinion. If you're eating a chicken
Mhm.
breast, and I'm going back to what I know from documentaries about chickens.
Mhm. Yes.
If they're pumped full of hormones, those breasts are much, much bigger.
Mhm.
And if they're not pumped full of hormones, they look like normal sized breasts. You
Right.
know, it's all a matter of what kind of a boob you want.
Well, and those are farm raised where their legs break because of the hormones and the just their whole bodies, not just the breast meat, but like the whole bodies, their muscles are growing so much. And then their legs break because they can't handle the weight because that's not normal for them. And
Yeah.
so we always want to try and go for the cleanest meat that we can get. Sometimes, look in your local area for farmers that you can go share a cow with someone and make sure that it's organic. And sometimes people complain because it's so lean and they're like, well, I put it in the pan and then it burned because there wasn't enough fat that came off of it. And people complain and I'm just like, that's a good thing. You could add a little avocado oil into the pan if you needed to. I would rather do that than have something to where, you cook it and then you had this much hamburger and now all of a sudden it's just this really small portion because there was so much of that fat in there. But
It's
so
learning how to
thinking
cook those foods. I mean,
right.
it's like learning that you should always cook rice and legumes together.
Right, exactly. And that's where, again, we're trying to get essential amino acids and we're
Yeah.
trying to get important nutrients. And so when we're getting beans and rice or, legumes and some sort of sprouted grain or something like that. And sprouted grains tend to be a little better. And there are some grains that are better than others. Like wheat is one that's probably the most prolific in our foods,
Mhm.
but the way that it's been genetically modified or bioengineered is not as good for our systems. It has a lot more gluten in it, and it's just they've made it. I think they call it like miniature wheat, or there's something like where it's shortened wheat. It grows faster, so you can get two harvests in a season, and so
Mhm.
so sprouted grains are going to be better. And if we can find non-GMO is helpful, but that's very difficult in the United States. But getting those combinations and those lean meats and thinking about like portion size, typically to make it easy, at least the size of the palm of your hand, because then it's portioned to you and your
Mm.
size. And if in one sitting for a piece of meat, if you get about the size of the palm of your hand, then you know that you're getting a decent portion for you. Now, for some people, they may say, there's no way I'm only eating that much meat. Other people may say, that's way too much. I can't eat that much. And so just think of it as kind of a measuring guide to say, yes, you can have a little more than that. You could have a little less than that, but we still need to make sure that we're getting that. Now, I will say too that when we are recovering from injury, that and if skipping meals is something because your appetite has been decreased, smoothies are a great way to go, because especially if you can throw in spinach, and you can even, if you take the little strings out, you can throw celery in, and it gives, or cucumbers, and it makes a nice fresh taste. I would just peel the cucumber before putting it in, and
Oh.
then add your protein powder. Peel the cucumber just because it makes it's not as smooth. So the cucumber
Oh,
peel will just be
it's
a little bit
chunky.
chunky in it. And so whereas if you peel it and then put it in to a smoothie, then it'll puree just a little bit better. And so then you're not tasting the little chunks of the skin, but you can do it that way if you want to. It's not going to do any harm. It's just, it's more palatable without it. And then, you can add in a scoop of collagen. You can add in, even a scoop of bone broth. There's bone broth protein powder, and they have unflavored vanilla, chocolate. And now you're getting different sources of protein, but also very beneficial ones for the healing process. And then you add in some fruits and you drink it. And, I wouldn't even care if you threw in a little bit of a little scoop of ice cream if that meant that you were going to actually eat it, right?
Yes. Put it in your face.
That's right.
Yes. Oh, Dr. Jamie, you have dropped some nuggets. I am loving all the information, especially the palm. I recommend to people when it comes to oils,
Mhm,
it's your
mhm.
thumbprint. That's
Yep,
the size for a serving. And
right.
this it blows people's minds. So we've blown some people's minds today.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
I hope so.
Where can people find you on the interwebs? And I know you've got something special to offer them, so I would love to hear that too.
Yes. So I have a website, drkswellness.com, and that's drkswellness.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. I have Dr. K's Wellness pages there, spelled the same. I have a Health, Wellness, and Vitality with Dr. K private Facebook group as well, and many different places that you can find me and find my information. I also am offering a mini series for how to use nutrition to heal from injuries and prevent injuries. And we're calling it pack the punch, or pack your punch, right? Of
Yep.
with nutrition. I think that I
Yep.
think I said that right.
Packing a
Um,
punch of nutrition.
yes, a punch of nutrition. And that mini series will be available to you. There will be a link for you that you can go and find that and be able to listen to this mini series as you're driving in your car or whatever it is, so that you can really learn some very simple ways to end up using nutrition for all of these things.
Love it. Your private Facebook group, anybody can access that as long as they sign up, right?
Yes, yes. There's a
Okay.
couple of questions to ask or answer. And then, yes, and you can get into that. I go live there once a week, typically on Mondays. And I do some extra things in that private Facebook group because then it's more of a community of people sharing rather than something that's public.
Nice. I love that. Oh, Dr. Jamie, thank you so much for giving us all this knowledge and giving everybody an opportunity to get to know you even deeper in this Pack Your Punch series and in your Facebook group. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me here on the podcast. This is amazing. And I love what you're doing. And for the audience, I really hope that you're taking to heart all of these different podcasts that are available and the information being provided, because this this is making a difference. Spirit of
Life
an athlete
changing.
is making a difference for all of us.
Yeah. Life changing information in this episode, especially because this is all about how to feed yourself, especially if you got injured. Jamie,
That's
thank
right.
you.
And can I just say that if you have, if you struggle with what to cook and how to prepare meals and things, I do have a quick and healthy meal prep guide that's free
Ooh,
that we could drop the link for as well. That you could get that, and it gives you 2 weeks of full meal plans that are chock full of nutrients, as well as the all the recipes, as well as the grocery lists and everything. And so all of that provided for you for free.
amazing. You guys, you can find that in the show notes. Check that out. That that right there is worth some money. Dr. Jamie, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to Spirit of an Athlete podcast. If you're struggling with your own gut issues and want more direction, you can get an initial body scan from Amanda at bodywhisperhealing.com. In 20 minutes, you can find out what's wrong, get clarity, map the path forward, and get on track to get back in your game. If this episode hits the spot, please let us know by rating, reviewing, and sharing it with a friend. Subscribe now to hear more inspiring stories from other female college athletes who overcame their health issues. Want more, Amanda? Get inspired by finding more at bodywhisperhealing.com.